I cooked the Christmas dinner. Set the table. Folded the napkins. But then, my daughter-in-law slid a letter beside my plate, an eviction notice. They thought I would cry, pack, and leave quietly. But they forgot who raised the woman they just betrayed. Before we begin, tell us in the comments. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted with everything? My name is Cora. And I am 63 years old. I folded the linen napkins 3 times before placing them beside each plate. My fingers shook, though I told myself it was just the chill in the air, not the ache I refused to name. The roast was resting. The pies, pecan, apple, and one of those molasses things Darren used to love, lined the sideboard like offerings. I had wrapped the gifts with real ribbon. Red satin. The kind Emma would approve of. I stood in the dining room doorway, smoothing my apron, watching the candles flicker. For a moment, I imagined how it used to feel, when laughter came easy, when Darren used to kiss my cheek without thinking, when Jonah used to sit in my lap to open his gifts. But this year, I felt like I'd wandered into someone else's house. "Mom," Darren called from the hallway, "we're here." I straightened up. "Coming," I said, but no one heard. I stepped into the living room and smiled. Too wide. Emma was in a red sweater, snug and glittering, her lips painted cranberry. She kissed the air beside my cheek. "It smells traditional," she said, sniffing the roast. "I hope that's a good thing," I replied. Darren brushed past me to hang their coats. He didn't look me in the eye. Jonah trailed behind, taller than I remembered, his hoodie half-zipped. I touched his arm gently. "Merry Christmas, sweetheart." He blinked, then nodded. "You too, Grandma." We sat. Emma insisted on leading grace. Darren carved the roast. Jonah asked for sparkling cider. I watched them serve each other first. Then, as the plates were filling, Emma reached into her purse. "I almost forgot," she said lightly, sliding a white envelope onto the table, right beside my plate. "Merry Christmas." I looked at it. Just an envelope. Plain. No bow. "What's this?" She smiled, head tilted. "A little encouragement. Since you won't move out on your own." My fingers froze. I looked to Darren. He stared at his mashed potatoes like they might answer for him. Slowly, I opened the flap. My heart thudded as I pulled the papers free. Legal print. Signatures. Court seal. An eviction notice. The words blurred. But the message was clear. "You're evicting me?" My voice cracked. "From my own home?" "Well, technically it's Darren's now," Emma said sweetly. "We just need the space. You understand." The room fell into silence. Forks paused midair. Jonah's eyes locked on mine, wide, stunned, ashamed. I swallowed hard. "You could have said something. You could have told me." "We tried," Darren muttered, finally. "You weren't listening." "I was baking pies," I said, staring at him. "I sewed your son's stocking by hand." Emma clicked her tongue. "Let's not make this dramatic." I stood. My napkin dropped to the floor. "Excuse me." I walked to the hallway, fast but not rushed. I wouldn't give them that. I closed the bedroom door softly behind me and sat on the edge of the bed. My hands were shaking. Through the vent, I heard Jonah whisper, "You didn't have to do it like that." And then, God help me, I heard Emma laugh. "Please. She'll survive." I covered my mouth with both hands. My home, this home, was built by calloused hands. My Howard laid the floorboards. I painted the walls. I planted the daffodils that still bloom every March. Every scratch on the banister held a story. Jonah's height marked in pencil behind the doorframe. The smell of cinnamon that never left the kitchen tile. And now I was an intruder in it. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in the dark, court papers beside me, the tree still glowing in the corner. I could hear them in the guest room, laughing, watching something on Emma's iPad. Darren's low chuckle. Emma's sharp voice cutting through it. At one point, I thought I heard the soft pad of feet outside my door. A pause. Then nothing. I wished I had asked Jonah to come in. I wished I had asked him anything. At dawn, I sat at the table with a cup of cold tea and stared at the letter again. The legal wording. The deadline. 30 days. 30 days to leave the only home I've known for 47 years. I heard the coffee maker sputter to life. Emma hummed. I didn't look up when she entered. "You're up early," she said, too cheerful. I didn't answer. She poured herself a cup. "Darren and I were talking," she added casually. "We think a retirement community might be a good fit. There's one with a little salon and a garden. Real cute." I stared at her. "You're planning my exile over coffee now?" She blinked. "Don't be so sensitive. It's just practical." I smiled then. Not kindly. "You wouldn't last 1 week in a house full of women who remember the world before you were born." She laughed. "Oh please." I stood. "I'll pack. But not today." She sipped her coffee. "Suit yourself." I walked past her, back to my room. I locked the door. Sat on the bed. Stared at the folded quilt my mother had made. My hands rested on my lap like they no longer knew what they were for. Outside the window, the daffodil bed was dry and brittle. Forgotten. I heard a knock, soft, hesitant. "Grandma?" Jonah's voice. Quiet. "Can I come in?" I hesitated. Then I got up and opened the door. His face was red. "I didn't know they were doing that." "I swear." "I believe you," I said. He looked at the floor. "You don't deserve this." I touched his cheek. "None of us deserve the worst parts of people we love." He nodded slowly. "I'll help you. However I can." For the first time all day, I felt something other than hollow. But when I looked back at the table through the open door, the envelope still resting beside my untouched plate, I knew nothing would be the same again. I stood at the edge of the living room, clutching the letter again like it might rewrite itself overnight. Darren was on the couch with his coffee, scrolling his phone like nothing had happened. Emma sat nearby, legs crossed, her red sweater still pristine, her nails tapping on her mug like a countdown. "Darren," I said. He didn't look up. "Mom, don't start. I need to talk to you." He sighed, finally glancing at me. "Not now. Let's not ruin Christmas, all right?" "Ruin Christmas?" I blinked. "You handed me an eviction notice at the dinner table." Emma sipped her coffee and didn't even try to hide her smirk. "Technically, I placed it beside your plate. I thought that was considerate." I ignored her. "Darren, I raised you in that house. I worked overtime shifts, skipped meals." "I know," he cut in, still not meeting my eyes. "But things change. It's just time." "Time for what? For your mother to be homeless?" He rubbed his temples. "You're not homeless. You'll find somewhere. Something smaller. Easier. You'll be happier. You don't get to decide what makes me happy." He stood suddenly. "This conversation isn't going to go anywhere good, Mom. Please don't make this harder." I stared at him. "Harder for who?" "You, who already made the decision. Or me, who's expected to vanish quietly?" Emma stood now too, sliding her hand around his arm. "Let's not be dramatic," she said softly, as if I were a child throwing a tantrum. "I see," I said. "I'm being dramatic. That's the word now for a mother asking why her son is throwing her out." "Mom," Darren said, his voice tight. "This house, it's too big for you. You've said that yourself." I said the stairs hurt my knees. I didn't say I wanted to be exiled. He looked down. You'll land on your feet. You always do. I stepped back. My voice cracked. I always did because I had to. Not because anyone made it easy. Emma's hand gripped his tighter. Let's go for a walk, she whispered. He followed her out the front door without looking back. I stood in the middle of the living room, arms folded across my chest like armor. The silence felt heavier than the shouting ever could have. I walked back to my room, closing the door softly. My hands trembled as I opened the closet. I pulled out a small suitcase, one I hadn't used since the trip to see Darren graduate medical school. I packed slowly, too slowly. A pair of pants. A cardigan. My favorite sweater, the blue one with the little embroidered birds. I held the sleeves against my chest for a moment. I used to fold Darren's laundry on this very bed, years ago. Tiny socks. Grass-stained jeans. I remembered the smell of his baby shampoo, the way his hand would cling to mine when he was scared. And now he couldn't even meet my eyes. A soft knock broke the silence. Grandma? Jonah's voice, barely audible. Are you okay? I wiped my face quickly and opened the door. He stood there in socks, hands shoved in his hoodie pockets. His eyes were wide, uncertain. I'm fine, I lied. He looked past me at the open suitcase. You're leaving? I forced a smile. Just packing a few things. Getting ahead of it. But you live here. Not anymore, apparently. He stepped inside. I didn't know they were doing that. I swear. I know, sweetheart. I think it's messed up. His voice cracked, and I reached out, squeezing his arm. It's not your fault, I whispered. You're not responsible for their choices. He looked at the floor. You shouldn't go. I might not have a choice. I could talk to Dad. I shook my head. He's already made up his mind. And Emma, well. She never saw me as more than clutter. He frowned. You're not clutter. I didn't answer. I just looked down at the clothes on the bed. Do you remember, I said softly, when your grandpa died? You were only 5. Your dad shut down. I still had to go to work. Still had to pay the mortgage. Still had to make dinner. I held this house together with duct tape and prayer. I bought this place. I bled for it. Jonah's eyes filled with tears. Then why are they doing this to you? Because it's easier to forget what people did when it no longer serves your comfort. He nodded slowly, then turned and slipped back into the hallway. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared out the window. The front yard was empty now. Darren and Emma must have gone for their morning walk. He used to take those with me. I looked at the tree across the street. Bare branches stretched against the sky like veins, hollow and reaching. I folded the last cardigan and zipped the suitcase closed. This house, every nail, every scuff mark, every creaky floorboard, was built on my back. I had been the roof when it rained, the floor when it collapsed. And yet somehow, I had become invisible. I didn't lose this house today. I'd been losing it one tiny moment at a time, when Darren stopped calling me Mom and started calling me her. When Emma corrected me in front of guests. When my name stopped appearing on invitations and mail. They didn't evict me last night. They finished the job. I stood and looked around one last time. The books I'd read to Darren. The old clock that ticked too loud. The picture of me holding Jonah as a baby. And I thought, maybe the cruelest part isn't being erased. Maybe it's realizing they practiced first. I'm not even sure why I came, I murmured as I sank into the soft leather chair across from Monica. She smiled gently. Because you know something isn't right. And because I still owe your generation everything I am. My mother adored you, you know. She made a mean banana pudding, I whispered, trying to smile. Haven't tasted anything like it since. Monica's smile faded as she took the stack of documents I'd clutched all morning. Let's take a look. Start from the beginning. I laid the court letter on her desk. Then, the envelope. Then, hesitantly, the yellowed folder I'd found in my bedroom drawer that morning. Insurance documents, or so I thought. Monica flipped through them with careful fingers. She squinted. Her brow furrowed. She flipped back. Then forward again. Wait, she said suddenly. They had you sign a quitclaim deed? I blinked. A what? She held up one of the forms. This isn't insurance paperwork. This is a quitclaim deed. It transfers ownership. You gave up the house. I stared at the page like it might explain itself. No, I said slowly. Emma said it was for insurance. Something about liability, in case of a storm. Monica's eyes didn't leave mine. Cora, she lied. The word sat heavy between us. My fingers curled on the edge of the desk. And Aaron? He signed this too? She turned the page. Yes. His name is listed as the recipient. And, it was notarized. Witnessed. Last October. October. The same week they bought that new SUV. Emma said it was a dealership deal they couldn't pass up. I offered to help with the down payment. I bit the inside of my cheek. So I've been living in their house for months without knowing. You've been living in your house, she said firmly. They just tricked you into giving it away. A flush of heat rose in my neck, my face. I didn't read it. I trusted them. You're not the first, she said. And you're not stupid, Cora. This was deliberate. The shame burned worse than the betrayal. I used to read every label, every form. After Howard passed, I paid off the mortgage on my own. I got tired. Monica leaned in. We might have a case. I looked up, startled. We might? It won't be easy, she said. We'd have to prove coercion or fraud. And with family, that's a minefield. But if we can show they misrepresented the documents, I'd have to take my son to court. She hesitated. Yes. The air felt thick in my chest. He was a boy who once cried when I missed his school play. And now I need to sue him to sleep in my own bed? Monica's voice softened. You're not doing this out of spite. You're doing it to survive. I looked down at the papers again. My name printed neatly at the top, Cora. My signature at the bottom, shaky but there. How did I not see it? Because you weren't looking for betrayal, she said. You were looking for peace. I swallowed hard. If we do this, and I lose. There's always risk, she said. But if you do nothing, you've already lost everything. I nodded slowly. My palms were damp. All right. What do we do first? She reached for a pen. I'll start drafting a petition. And I need you to write a statement about when and how they gave you those papers. Everything you remember. I stood shakily. I'll try. Monica walked me to the door. You don't have to be loud, Cora. But you do need to be clear. We'll figure this out. Outside, snow had started to fall. Just the light kind, the kind that dusts roofs and softens the edges of things. I pulled my coat tight and stepped down the office stairs. My legs felt wobbly. My mouth tasted like rust. But somewhere inside me, something stirred. Not rage. Not yet. Something smaller. Like a match being struck in a cold room. At the corner, I paused beneath a bare tree. Snowflakes caught in my hair. I looked up at the sky, pale and tired. They think I'm weak, I whispered. Because I don't shout. Because I make pies and smile politely and don't slam doors. My breath curled into the air. But they've never seen what quiet women can survive. I turned and began walking home. The wind bit through my coat, but I didn't flinch. I wasn't done. Not yet. Not even close. I pushed the door open with a soft creak. The hallway smelled like cinnamon, but something was off, too still, too clean. Then I saw them. Boxes. 6 of them, lined neatly by the front door, taped shut and labeled in block letters: clothes, books, kitchen miscellaneous, decor, bathroom, miscellaneous, Cora. My throat tightened. I walked slowly toward them. Each one sealed. Each one saying, "You're done here." "Thought we'd make it easier for you," Emma said, without looking up from her phone. She sat on the arm of the couch, legs crossed, sipping tea like it was any other afternoon. "Figured you'd want a head start." I turned to Darren, who stood by the mantel pretending to adjust a photo frame. His hands were shaking. "You packed up my room?" I asked quietly. "We didn't throw anything away," he muttered. "You packed my life into cardboard while I was gone. We just wanted to be efficient." Emma set her cup down. "We're giving you until the 5th, but legally, you're already trespassing." I stared at her. "Trespassing? You mean the home I paid for, scrubbed for, cooked in, cried in?" She didn't answer. Just scrolled her phone again. I looked at Darren. "Do you even care what this feels like?" His mouth opened, but nothing came out. He looked at the floor. I shook my head. "No suitcase in your hand when you left for college. No moving van when you married her. I was the one boxing up pieces of myself to make room for your life." Emma stood and smoothed her sweater. "Don't make this ugly." I laughed. "Bitter. You already did." "Let's not turn this into a drama," Darren mumbled. "I'm sorry, is there a polite way to be betrayed by your own child?" They said nothing. I walked to the boxes. Taped. Tidy. Erased. I knelt and opened the one labeled miscellaneous, Cora. On top was a tin of buttons I kept from my sewing kit. Beneath it, the quilt my mother stitched when I first got married. Folded, but not well. At the bottom, a plastic bag with 2 of Howard's cufflinks, ones Darren used to play with as a boy, pretending to be a banker. My fingers lingered on them. I stood slowly. No one helped me carry the weight then. No one's helping now. Emma shrugged. "We all have to grow up sometime." Just then, Jonah appeared at the top of the stairs. He looked down at me, then at the boxes. "Hey, Grandma," he said softly. I managed a smile. "Hey, sweetheart." He descended slowly, glancing at his parents. When he reached me, he slipped something into my hand, a folded note, small and warm, from his pocket. I closed my fingers around it. He whispered, "Come to the library tomorrow after school. Don't tell Mom." I gave a small nod. "All right." He hugged me, brief but real, and hurried out the door like he hadn't done a thing. I turned back to the living room. No one moved. Darren was now standing behind Emma like she was some shield. I bent down and dragged one of the boxes toward the garage. Emma cleared her throat. "You can't just leave things by the door. It's a safety hazard." I kept walking. The garage was cold. Dim light filtered through the dusty window. I set the box down and exhaled. Then another. And another. By the time I'd hauled them all in, my back ached and my hands were red. But I didn't ask for help. I wouldn't give them the chance to refuse. I pulled up an old plastic chair and sat among the boxes. My knees cracked. My heart didn't. One box sat open, half-taped. I reached inside and pulled out a photo frame. It was me and Darren. He was 5, curled up asleep on my shoulder. My eyes were tired, but I was smiling. His fingers clung to my collar like he never wanted to let go. I ran my thumb across the glass. That little boy, he used to bring me dandelions from the yard. Used to sob when I dropped him off at kindergarten. Used to whisper, "Don't leave, Mommy," when I tucked him in. That boy was gone. But I was still here. The silence of the garage didn't bother me. It had weight, but not malice. Just memory. Just stillness. I folded the photo against my chest and closed my eyes. Let them think they buried me. They have no idea who they've just set free. I spotted him before he saw me, shoulders hunched at the corner table in the library cafe, hoodie half-zipped, earbuds dangling but not in. His hands fidgeted with the lid of a paper cup. 17 years old, but somehow more present than the people twice his age under my roof. "Hey," I said softly as I pulled out the chair across from him. His face lit up, only a little, but enough to remind me there was still light left in this family. "Hey, Grandma," he said. "You made it. I wasn't followed, if that's what you're worried about." He smiled. "They think you're in the garage crying." I raised an eyebrow. "That's oddly specific." He glanced down. "That's what Mom said. She'll cry herself out eventually." My chest tightened, but I kept my voice even. "And what did your father say?" "That you'd give up," he said, meeting my eyes. "That it's too much trouble to fight." I stared at him. "Do you think they're right?" He leaned in. "No. I think they hope you are." A beat passed. I folded my hands together, willing them not to shake. "Why do you care, Jonah?" His eyes dropped. Then rose again, steadier. "Because you raised him better than that." I inhaled slowly. He reached into his backpack, zipped halfway open, and slid a flash drive across the table. I looked at it. Then at him. "What is this?" "Stuff I found. On Mom's laptop. Dad's drawer. Emails. Transfers. I think they've been planning this longer than you think." My fingers hovered above it. "Why do you have this?" He shrugged. "I listen. I know where they hide the real conversations." I stared at the flash drive like it might catch fire. He took a sip from his cup. "You always brought me here when I was little. Remember? Story hour in the corner? That beanbag I kept falling off?" I smiled. "You used to pick the noisiest books on purpose." "Yeah. And you'd still read every word." The cafe fell quiet for a moment, just the hum of the espresso machine and soft murmurs of other tables. "I think you can win," he said, his voice lower now. "But you have to fight." I exhaled. "It's not just court dates and lawyers, Jonah. It's him. My son." "I know." "No, you don't," I said gently. "You haven't yet had to choose between memory and truth." I remember Darren in overalls, dragging a wagon full of frogs into the kitchen. I remember the night his father died and he slept in my bed, clutching my hand all night long. I remember the boy who begged me not to cry at his graduation. "I remember that too," Jonah whispered. "And I also remember last night, when he looked away like you were nothing." I didn't reply. He leaned in, quieter now. "They talk like you're a burden. Like your wallpaper." My lip twitched. "Funny. I picked that wallpaper in the hallway. Took me 3 days to hang it right." He smiled again. "Then don't let them paint over it." I looked down at the flash drive. "You know, you could get in trouble for this." He shrugged. "So what? You gave me my first library card. You taught me how to stand up in the schoolyard without throwing punches. Is that what I'm doing? Standing up without throwing punches?" He looked at me seriously. "You've been doing it for decades. You just didn't notice." I sat back and stared out the window. Snow again. Gentle. Relentless. "I don't have much," I said. "No fancy lawyer army. No political friends. Just me. A flash drive. A little girl inside me who refuses to disappear." "Then that's enough," Jonah said. I turned to him. "You know this might change things. Between you and them." He looked down at his cup. "They already started that. Not me." Silence wrapped around us again, but it wasn't empty. It was full of every word we didn't need to say. I reached out and touched his hand. You're more your father than he is now. He blinked, looked like he might cry, but didn't. You sure you want to be part of this? I already am, he said. You just didn't know. I nodded. Slipped the flash drive into my coat pocket. My fingers curled around it like a weapon. He stood first. I gotta get to class. But you'll call Monica, right? I will. He hesitated. And, Grandma? Yes? They think you're a ghost in your own house. But I see you. You're not gone. I smiled. Neither are you. He left, shoulders a little straighter. I stayed seated, hand still over the flash drive, heart pounding not with fear this time, but with something sharp. Solid. Awake. Let them call me weak. Let them pack boxes and sign papers. They've never met the woman I used to be. But they're about to. Monica plugged in the flash drive, her jaw tight as she clicked through the files. I sat across from her, hands folded in my lap, knees aching from the cold. This was all in their drawer, she asked. I nodded. Jonah found it. Said he overheard Emma printing things she didn't want Darren to see. She didn't reply. Just scrolled through PDFs and spreadsheets, her expression shifting from focus to alarm. A minute passed. Then two. Monica? She looked up, eyes wide. Your daughter-in-law's been moving money. Out of Darren's accounts. Into one under her name. And, look at this, using your old address as a secondary billing point. She's been making it look like you authorized these transfers. I leaned forward. I never saw those documents. Never touched them. Exactly, she said. This isn't just eviction, Cora. It's fraud. It's financial abuse. The words sat heavy in the air. She's been stealing, I whispered. Monica nodded. And hiding it. This document here? She backdated it. Look at the metadata, she created it last month, but printed it with a 2022 timestamp. My heart thudded. She was planning this for a long time. Longer than you think. Monica clicked to another folder. There's a spreadsheet labeled Projected Equity Payout. Cora, it lists the value of your house, broken down month by month. She even has a note, sell in spring, before Grandma figures it out. I blinked hard. She called me Grandma in a spreadsheet. Monica's voice softened. We can use this. We'll need to get a forensic accountant involved, but it strengthens your case, especially if we show misrepresentation and intent to deceive. I sat back. What do I do now? She turned toward me. Act like nothing's changed. Let them think they've won. Meanwhile, gather everything, emails, voice messages, receipts. We'll file a petition next week. I exhaled slowly. I can do that. Her eyes met mine. Are you sure? I smiled. I've been underestimated my whole life. I'm used to it. Back home, I opened the door like someone defeated. I even sighed loud enough for Emma to hear. She glanced up from her tablet. You're back early. I nodded. Didn't want to stay out long. Cold. She stood, brushing invisible crumbs from her blouse. Did you look at that place I sent you? The one with the little koi pond? Looks peaceful, I murmured. She smiled like a cat licking cream. They offer group dance classes too. I hear widows love that. I'll call tomorrow, I lied. She patted my arm. That's the spirit. We're just trying to help you land softly. I nodded again, then turned to the kitchen and poured myself tea with hands that no longer trembled. She didn't notice. That night, when the house was quiet, I sat in the garage with my boxes. Jonah slipped in through the side door like a shadow. Here, he whispered, holding out an envelope. Inside were printed screenshots. Texts between Emma and someone labeled Marcy are. Emma, tired of playing nice. She's still here. Marcy, LOL. Didn't you file already? Emma, yeah, but Darren's dragging his feet. I told him we'd get her out by Christmas. I looked up at him. Where'd you get these? She synced her iPad with the kitchen computer once. I grabbed them before she noticed. I exhaled, steady. You're sure she didn't see? He shook his head. She was too busy posting salad pictures. I half smiled. You've got your father's eyes. But your grandfather's spine. He looked proud for a moment. There's more. Dad printed some bank stuff yesterday and forgot to shred it. I'll try to grab it tomorrow. Careful, I said. They'll turn on you if they smell even a whiff of loyalty. He grinned. Let them try. Over the next few days, I played my role to perfection. I complimented Emma's dry turkey. I nodded when Darren suggested a small studio near the freeway. I even asked for help creating an online account for a retirement home I had no intention of visiting. But at night, I searched. In the coat closet, I found a crumpled receipt for a contractor consultation, dated 2 weeks before they served the notice. On the back, Emma had scribbled, "Remove railing in hallway, clean slate." I snapped a picture. In the laundry room, I found a discarded post-it, titled "Transfer Meeting, Don't Bring Cora." I kept it. But the gem came from an old voicemail. I found my flip phone, the one I hadn't used in years, tucked away in a drawer of sewing supplies. I remembered I used to save messages that made me feel close to people. I scrolled through until I heard her voice. Hi, Cora. Just checking in. Darren says you're still unsure about signing the insurance forms. Don't overthink it, okay? We just want to get things in place before the holidays. It's best for everyone. We'll get you out by Christmas, through the process by Christmas, I mean. Anyway. Let me know. I replayed it twice. Then recorded it on my new phone. I didn't cry. I didn't even shake. I just labeled the file, "Gift from Emma." The fourth night, as we sat in the living room pretending to enjoy a terrible holiday movie, Emma turned to me and said, "You've been awfully quiet lately." I sipped my tea. I'm just grateful. For what? For clarity, I said. She tilted her head. Well, that's vague. I think it's best to focus on the positive, I replied. She turned back to the screen, missing the look that passed between Jonah and me from across the room. This time, I wouldn't be the quiet one at the table. This time, I was listening too. I buttoned my navy coat slowly, my hand steadier than I expected. The mirror showed an older woman with silver hair pulled back, lips set in a quiet line. It was the same coat I wore to Darren's medical school graduation, the one where I cried behind sunglasses and clapped until my palms stung. Back then, he had kissed my cheek and whispered, "I wouldn't be here without you." Now I was walking into court to prove he'd helped steal my home. Monica met me on the courthouse steps, clutching her files, her breath visible in the morning chill. "You ready?" she asked. "I'm here," I replied. "That's enough." We walked through the metal detectors in silence. Inside, the room was hushed, sterile. Benches lined the sides, the judge's bench rising like a distant mountain. Emma was already seated across the aisle in a fitted cream blazer, hair straight, nails red. She looked like she was heading to a real estate closing. When her eyes met mine, she smirked, just enough for me to feel it in my bones. Darren stood beside her in a too-tight tie, looking like he hadn't slept. He didn't meet my gaze. Monica whispered, "Let her underestimate us. That's part of the plan." The clerk called the case. We stood. "Your Honor," Monica began, "we're here to challenge the validity of a quitclaim deed filed under misrepresented terms, and to present evidence of financial coercion and fraudulent intent." The judge, a sharp-eyed woman in her 60s, raised an eyebrow. "Proceed." Monica handed over the first packet. Exhibit A, The quitclaim deed signed under the false pretense of insurance paperwork. My client was told it was routine liability documentation. She had no legal counsel and was not informed of the property transfer. The judge scanned the pages. This was notarized. Yes, Your Honor. By a notary Emma's friend works with. We have a sworn statement confirming Cora was not informed of the document's contents. A flicker passed through Emma's face. The judge turned. Miss Holloway, is this true? I stepped forward. I signed it at the kitchen table. Emma said it was to protect the house in case of a fire. I believed her. Emma let out a soft scoff. The judge didn't blink. Proceed. Monica handed over the next set of documents. Exhibit B, banking records showing over $42,000 funneled from a joint account Cora previously had access to. Transferred systematically into an account controlled solely by Emma. Emma leaned in to whisper to Darren. He looked frozen. And Exhibit C, Monica added. A voicemail recording dated 6 weeks prior to the eviction notice. She tapped her phone. Emma's voice filled the courtroom. We just want to get things in place before the holidays. It's best for everyone. We'll get her out by Christmas, through the process by Christmas, I mean. There was a long pause. The air felt thinner somehow. The judge looked up. Do you have anything to say in response, Miss Holloway? She nodded toward Emma. Emma stood quickly, smoothing her blazer. Your Honor, with all due respect, this is a bitter misunderstanding. The house was gifted. Cora agreed to the deed. We simply wanted what's best for her. The judge's eyes narrowed. I'll be the judge of what's best. Sit down. Then she turned to me. Mrs. Holloway. Before I make any decisions, would you like to say something? I glanced at Monica. She gave a single, steady nod. I stepped forward, my shoes quiet against the tile. I raised my son in that house, I said, voice even. I made every holiday meal. I cleaned the floors, mowed the lawn, paid the mortgage. When his father died, I held our lives together with tape and coffee and prayer. Darren looked up at me for the first time. His eyes were red. This isn't just about a house, I continued. It's about memory. About worth. About how easily people forget the shoulders they stood on. About how quiet women are told to be grateful for crumbs while others feast. My voice cracked, but I didn't stop. I signed a paper I didn't understand because I trusted them. I loved them. And they took that love and turned it into paperwork. I turned, meeting the judge's gaze. Mothers are not furniture. We are not disposable. We are not things to be moved when inconvenient. Silence. Then the judge leaned forward. Thank you, Mrs. Holloway. She opened a folder, paused, then closed it again. I've heard enough. Emma shifted in her seat. Darren looked like he was shrinking. This court finds credible evidence of misrepresentation and financial manipulation. Effective immediately, the quitclaim deed is vacated. Title reverts to Cora. Full legal ownership restored. Emma gasped. What? The judge didn't look at her. Furthermore, I am ordering an independent audit of all household accounts over the past 2 years. If fraud is confirmed, criminal charges may follow. Monica exhaled beside me. Darren buried his face in his hands. The judge banged the gavel once. Court adjourned. I stood still, heart pounding. I turned to Darren. You let her turn me into a problem. He looked up slowly. Mom. I would have given you everything, I said. But you took it anyway. Emma stormed out, heels clicking like gunshots. I didn't follow. Monica touched my arm. Let's get you home. I smiled faintly. That's what I'm trying to do. The door creaked as I pushed it open. My hand lingered on the doorknob longer than it needed to. I stepped inside my house, not theirs, not shared. Mine. The quiet hit first. No clatter of cups from the kitchen. No footsteps overhead. No Emma pacing the hallway in stilettos or Darren mumbling half-hearted excuses under his breath. Just silence. I slipped off my shoes and walked slowly across the living room. The floors had been recently polished, by me, years ago. The scent of lemon oil still clung to the wood. I smiled faintly. The boxes they packed were still where I'd left them in the garage. I hadn't unpacked yet. I wasn't in a hurry. When you reclaim something stolen, you handle it differently, slowly, carefully, like a cracked dish you glue back together piece by piece. I made tea. Not to calm myself. Just because I wanted to. I carried the mug into the dining room. The table still had the dent in the corner where Jonah dropped a toy truck when he was 6. I ran my fingers over it as I sat down. I looked at the chairs one by one. Mine. Jonah's. Darren's. And Emma's. That chair stayed empty. I stared at it for a long time. I thought I'd feel triumph. Vindication. But what came instead was something quieter. Like cool air after a storm. Like a clean breath. There was no one left to fill that seat, and I wasn't sorry. Just free. The clock ticked somewhere down the hall. I sipped my tea. Then stood, walked to the hall closet, and pulled out the old tin box from the top shelf. My recipe cards. I hadn't opened that box in over a year. Not since Emma started ordering catered food and acting like home cooking was beneath her. But these cards, worn at the edges, stained with butter and time, they still knew who I was. I spread them on the table like a deck of memories. Peach cobbler. Buttermilk biscuits. Chicken pot pie. My mother's cranberry stuffing. I smiled as my fingers touched the notes in the margins, add extra nutmeg, or Darren likes it crispier. I gathered a few. This time I wasn't cooking for apologies. Or to win anyone back. This time it would be for the women at church who brought me soup when I was sick last fall. For Monica, who stood by me when my own son wouldn't. For Jonah, wherever he was now, he said he was staying with his friend Eli until things settled. And for me. Just me. I walked to the pantry and started taking stock. Flour, sugar, spices. Some things needed replacing. Some didn't. Just like the people in my life. There was a knock at the door. I froze for a second, habit. Then walked calmly to answer it. It was Sarah from church. I heard, she said gently. Thought I'd check on you. I stepped aside. Come in. I was just making a list. For what? A dinner. She looked surprised. Already? I nodded. I need to feed the parts of me they couldn't erase. She stepped into the kitchen and grinned. Tell me you're making the green bean casserole with the little onions. I smiled. And the peach cobbler. She pulled out a chair. Not that chair. A good one. I'll help. I poured her tea and we sat there, the two of us, talking softly while light came in through the windows and settled on the cards. Later, after she left, I stayed at the table for a while. I glanced again at the chair across from mine. Emma's. It was still empty. But now, it didn't haunt me. It simply wasn't mine to fill. I got up, took the chair gently, and dragged it into the hallway closet. I didn't need the ghost of a woman who tried to erase me staring across from me every morning. I replaced it with the old rocking chair I'd stored in the attic. The one Howard gave me after Jonah was born. I sat back down. That was better. The corners of this house, once full of whispers and watching eyes, were quiet now. But not empty. I took another sip of tea and added one more item to my dinner list. Peace. I lit the candle by the window just after dusk. The flame flickered against the pane, casting slow, golden shadows across the kitchen table where a sheet of paper waited, blank and wide as a sky after storm. This letter wasn't for a lawyer. It wasn't for Emma, or Darren, or even the judge who handed me back my name. It was for me. I dipped the pen and let the ink flow. You were never weak. You were quiet. You were careful. You were listening while they talked over you. You carried the weight so long, you forgot it wasn't part of your body. And even when they boxed you up and called it help, you stayed whole. You survived. I paused, let the ink dry. Then kept writing. This house was never just walls. It was memory. It was battle. It was sacred. And you, Cora, held it together when no one else could. Let this be your reply to every silence that tried to swallow you. You are not erased. You are still here. I signed my name, slowly, like a promise. Then I folded the paper into thirds and slipped one copy into Jonah's old science book, the one with a cracked spine and his notes still scribbled in the margins. He'd find it someday. Maybe not soon. But eventually. I placed it back on the shelf. Christmas came soft that year. No flashing lights. No crowded rooms. Just a pine tree from the church lot, trimmed in white ribbon and old wooden ornaments I once carved with Howard in the garage. The star leaned slightly, but I left it that way. Not everything had to be straight to shine. Monica arrived first, holding a pie and a bottle of cider. You look good, she said, hugging me tight. I feel lighter, I said. Not healed. But less hollow. She smiled. That's more than most people get. Next came Sarah and the ladies from the church choir. They brought cranberry muffins and casseroles wrapped in foil. One of them handed me a small card that simply read, "You were never alone." I nearly cried, but didn't. Then, halfway through the afternoon, there was a knock I didn't expect. I opened the door and found Darren standing there, hat in his hands, eyes tired. I won't stay, he said quickly. I wanted to see the house. One last time. I stepped aside. You can come in. He glanced around the living room, at the tree, at the faint scent of cinnamon in the air. It looks like it used to. No, I said. It looks like it was always meant to. You just forgot. He nodded slowly. Jonah told me what you did. What you found. He says you were always watching. Even when we weren't. I crossed my arms. I was always hoping. That's not the same. He looked down. I'm sorry, Mom. For everything. I know, I said. But sorry is the first step. Not the finish line. He met my eyes, and for a flicker, I saw the boy who once cried when I scraped my knee on the driveway. I hope you can forgive me one day, he whispered. Maybe I already have, I said. But forgiveness isn't forgetting. I won't forget. He nodded, stepped back toward the door. Then hesitated. Is Jonah okay? I smiled faintly. He's more than okay. He's becoming someone I'm proud to know. Darren blinked quickly. I'm glad. And then he left, coat fluttering behind him like something untied. By evening, the tea was poured and the table filled. Laughter came, not forced, not brittle. Real. Someone told a story about their grandchild painting the dog green. Someone else confessed to burning a ham in front of a new boyfriend. We laughed until our ribs ached. And I, sitting at the head of the table, not hidden, not erased, felt something settle in the corners of my chest. Peace. Not the kind that comes from silence. The kind that comes after you've told your truth and watched the walls stay standing. I looked around the room. At friends. At chosen family. At the tree glowing in the corner. I realized then, I didn't want my story to end in bitterness. I wanted it to end in truth. So when Monica clinked her glass and asked for a toast, I stood. I don't have anything fancy to say, I began. Just this. They turned to me, waiting. Sometimes, I said slowly, the strongest voice in the room is the one that whispers last. A hush fell. And then soft applause. I sat back down, my hand brushing against the table's edge. Solid. Familiar. Mine. Hit the like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe for more true feeling stories about silent strength and second chances. Your voice matters, just like hers did.